Tariff showdown, an escalating AI race, multiple wars. What makes this moment so different for leaders?
They didn't anticipate that all the variables would hit all at once.
The kinds of decisions that leaders need to make require intestinal fortitude.
What has the science shown folks?
Pay attention to things that you know can be really triggering.
Flip out! Dazed and Confused. Hi, I'm Jill Wiltfong, Chief Marketing Officer for Korn Ferry, and this is Briefings, our deep dive into topics that corporate leaders need to care about. Tariff showdowns, an escalating AI race, multiple wars, and all of this on the heels of a global pandemic. Corporate leaders are well trained to respond to major disruptions, but when there are so many at once, does it all get to be too much? Maybe that's why 7 in 10 business leaders reported feeling more stressed at the start of this year compared to the same time last year. Leadership experts say many C-suite executives confidentially confess to feeling like the sky is falling. But those experts also say the only way to combat this dread is for a new breed of leader to emerge, one who can deal with a world in which simultaneous crises are the norm. But where do smart leaders begin to tackle such overwhelming odds? Our research has identified some critical areas where top executives can focus their attention to make sure they stay ahead of the curve, keep the sky well above their heads, and avoid feeling generally dazed and confused. Before we start, if you're watching us on YouTube, please be sure to like, subscribe, and leave a comment to let us know your thoughts on this topic. With us now are Evelyn Orr, Korn Ferry's head of CEO and executive assessment in North America, and Stu Crandell, a Korn Ferry senior client partner in the board and CEO practice. They're both privy to the private concerns of many corporate leaders and have spent countless hours counseling them through these challenging times. First of all, thanks to both of you for joining me.
Thank you, Jill.
It's great to be here.
So before we get into the nitty-gritty, let's just get a baseline check on what makes this moment so different for leaders than, say, maybe 10 years ago. Evelyn, you've talked about how these crises are now not only simultaneous, but also sequential, depriving leaders of sufficient recovery time, I guess, between these types of shocks. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I was in conversation with a CEO candidate a couple weeks ago, and he mentioned how their business scenario planning would account for every single one of the events that they're facing, but what it didn't account for was the sequential nature of them and the simultaneous nature of them. They didn't anticipate or plan that all the variables would hit all at once. There's a need for humans, of course, in order to maintain resilience. We can't always be in a constant state of alert or stress or output. There's a need to rebuild that cushion to absorb shocks. And that is what is missing when these events are simultaneous and overlapping. Makes
sense. Stu, given all this chaos and these rapid disruptions in the business landscape, do you feel that today we need a different breed, maybe a new breed of leader at the helm of companies to manage all of this kind of simultaneous disruption that is coming at them?
What we do see is that if it's not a new breed, there are heightened levels of different traits that are needed. I think it boils down to 3 things that I see CEOs today really needing a whole lot more of. One is the resilience that Evelyn just talked about. With all of the disruption going on, the need for that resilience is much greater. Second is courage. And the kinds of decisions that leaders and CEOs need to make today require so much more kind of that intestinal fortitude. Third is agility. And it's the agility to go kind of have that both and. It's perform and transform. It's composure to go through a crisis, but simultaneously having the inspiration and passion that you can rally the troops.
Whatever comes out of these gates, we've got a better chance of survival if we work together. Do you understand? If we stay together, we survive.
That's a scene from the movie Gladiator, where Russell Crowe, as an ex-army Roman general, portrays a skillful leader who helps his team claim victory against really overwhelming odds. Evelyn, as you evaluate potential leaders, what are you looking for that tells you they have the right traits to deal with today's state of, as we call it, perma-crisis?
We're also looking for what are the mindsets that leaders have. What are they motivated by? Where are they getting their energy? We know that the role of CEO and the role of enterprise leaders on the leadership team require a renewable source of energy. And so for leaders who are energized by challenge and energized by ambiguity, not just able to meet challenge and not just able to deal with ambiguity, but fully energized, they're going to be the ones who are going to be tapped for these roles today.
Nice. So if those are the green flags, so to speak, when you're assessing future leaders, what are the biggest red flags that tell you that a leader may not be the best fit for these types of times?
I think you can imagine that in a crisis, you don't want a leader who is volatile and lacks composure. You don't want someone who's going to be closed to new ideas or not interested in collaborating or trusting other people. Sometimes we see leaders who are overly self-reliant or autonomous. They don't want to trust others, and therefore they're not able to scale their leadership.
Stu, when you're thinking about this new breed of leader that needs to emerge, are these traits that people either have or don't have? Or if someone's listening and thinking, I don't really behave that way or show those characteristics today, are they things that you can work on?
You can, and so these are not things that you're just born with. But it does take a level of openness and curiosity. And if you come in thinking I'm the smartest person in the room, you come in with a level of arrogance, you are not listening, you won't learn, you won't grow. And I'm working with one client where the CEO candidate has kind of largely stopped developing. And this person was just not open. Very, very strong executive, very good at what they do, but they have kind of lost that ability to be open and learn and grow, and as a result, likely not to become the next CEO.
All right. Well, Evelyn, Stu, thank you for the very enlightening chat today. It definitely helps to clarify how the job of leadership is evolving, and there's no doubt it is.
Thank you, Jill.
Great. Thank you very much, Jill.
We've looked at some challenges facing leaders and the ways in which they need to transform. When we return from the break, we'll dive into one more key focus area for leaders, and it might just be the most critical one of all. Stay with us.
Hi, and welcome to This Week in Leadership. I'm Rupak Bhattacharya, and here's a quick look at what else is happening in business.
How to increase employee productivity in the workplace.
64% of managers report feeling pressured from above to take a harder stance on performance this year. The likely reason? Productivity growth remains stubbornly hard to sustain. For example, last year, productivity rose 2.8% in the United States, only to decrease 1.8% in the first quarter of 2025.
It's still hard for retailers to get our money out of our pockets, right?
61% of consumers say they are already trading down to cheaper products, and 77% say that they expect their finances to be further disrupted by tariffs. Retail pros say this could spell trouble for brands because once shoppers trade down, as long as they find the experience acceptable, they tend to stick with it.
Today, we're going to talk about mergers and acquisitions.
A recent report found that 54% of British companies surveyed see M&A activity increasing. While that's generally good news for a business environment that's been struggling for growth, experts do have some concern that HR departments might get overwhelmed trying to merge workforces, citing that 74% of non-US mergers lead to cultural integration issues. For more insights from This Week in Leadership, head to kornferry.com/insights. Now back to Jill and our episode, Dazed and Confused.
Well, don't worry.
Don't worry. I'm not gonna do what you all think I'm gonna do, which is just flip out!
We're back talking about the simultaneous factors causing leaders to feel increasingly dazed and confused. And with us now is Amelia Haynes, a research manager at Korn Ferry. Amelia has spent lots of time deeply investigating neurological and psychological perspectives on leadership, which is perfect for us because our final area of exploration today is how these external shocks are destabilizing many leaders' temperament. Amelia, thanks for being here.
Hey, Jill, it's great to see you again.
That last clip we showed featured Tom Cruise in the movie Jerry Maguire flipping out at the office after receiving some hard news. So, Amelia, when leaders, or anyone for that matter, receives troubling news, you've described what almost sounds like this tug of war inside the brain between the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex. Can you talk us through what each of those parts of the brain does and talk us through how they function under stress? What's happening?
The amygdala sort of acts like the brain's rapid response system for detecting threats in your environment. And under stress, this can become more active. The prefrontal cortex, on the other hand, is more of your executive system, so to speak. And so the two regions together actually have a really interesting bidirectional relationship. So the amygdala is kind of responsible for sending bottom-up, emotionally salient signals to the prefrontal cortex, which is really important for the brain. So it's important to have that information about what's going on in your environment and what's important for me to pay attention to. The prefrontal cortex does sort of the opposite. It does top-down regulation and control over the amygdala. So it can tell your brain, like, hey, thanks for the notice, but, we're actually okay right now. Or, this is what we're going to pay attention to. This is really what we're going to hone in on. So it's really important that both of them are working, but it's especially important that both of them are working together.
Okay. And you have said that stronger connectivity between these two regions of the brain, the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex, do give a person more self-control. So then what has the science shown folks they can do to strengthen that connection? Are there things that are within our control?
So I would say paying attention is the first thing. Pay attention to the way that your body feels. Pay attention to things in your environment that you know can be really triggering. Also surround yourself with trusted associates that can give you that feedback about how your behavior is coming across in an environment. Movement is really important. Aerobic exercise has been shown to stimulate neurogenesis in the prefrontal cortex. So that's the kind of growth of new neurons in these regions. And then the last one is sleep. I know it seems really basic, but if you want to be in control, if you're trying to put yourself in a position of being well regulated and well focused, it's also really important to be well rested.
I don't know if I was delusional, but sometimes I'd write something and I'd be my favorite writer that day.
I like that you can say that about yourself.
I don't think I can say it to anybody, but I feel like I can say it to you.
That's a scene from the movie Her, where Joaquin Phoenix shares private thoughts with an AI bot as if she were his personal therapist. It's only a movie, but with all of AI's talents, one survey did find that 1 in 3 people are considering using AI therapy instead of a human therapist. Some C-suite leaders have wondered if it could help decrease their own work stress. But Amelia, you've said that AI may not make for the best mental health coach. Can you unpack that one for me?
For some people who may not be comfortable yet seeking out mental health support or an expert, or just, for whom that might not be available, part of me says something is better than nothing. But I will caution, it's really important to remember what generative AI is. It is not a mental health expert. It is a predictive model. So what's going on underneath the surface is not the years and years of training that mental health experts undergo. It is a model that predicts words based on a huge amount of input from all over the internet, from all different sources, that's trained to tell you what you tell it is a good response, kind of fundamentally. So you give it feedback about what response is deemed good by you. And what we have seen in the past is that it kind of turns into a little bit of an echo chamber.
I do want to get back to the brain and end on an observation you had that the brain's ability to deal with multiple stressors at once depends on its ability to prioritize what's most salient. And that for most people, what's most salient tends to be things that are social, like status and relationships, interpersonal dynamics. So given all of that, it's possible a CEO might perceive their relationships as more important than what's actually important for the company, which presents a real potential problem. Is there any way that firms can get around that? Or is this one of those stubborn parts of the human psyche that, frankly, we're all just stuck with?
You can almost use that tendency that we have naturally as social creatures to our advantage. Korn Ferry has some really, really interesting research that has found that an outward-facing pro-social purpose is associated with strong business performance. So consider orienting around purpose when you're thinking about social goals. Higher levels of purpose are also associated with lower emotional reactivity to negative stimuli. So I think if you reframe social goals from being a potentially negative thing to being able to be this really positive thing, you can actually kind of tap into some of the things that are true about humans and some of the things that make us human to be a superpower rather than a potential downfall.
Really nice. Well, Amelia, a mind-expanding conversation as always. Thank you really for being here today. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you for having me.
The executive producer of Briefings is Jonathan Dahl. Today's episode was produced by Rupak Bhattacharya and Zachary Dorr. And it was edited by Jaron Henry McRae. It contains reporting by Russell Perlman, Ariane Cohen, and Peter Loria. Our video segment contains original artwork by Fraser Milton, Haley Kennel, Jonathan Pink, and Sasha Kotschik. Don't forget to read our magazine, available at newsstands and at kornferry.com/briefings. That's it for Korn Ferry Briefings. I'm Jill Wiltfong. See you next time. It's crazy how awful it is to fly in an airline when you don't have status.